Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a striking visual journey through the Ayodhya Hills of West Bengal to uncover what is honestly a deeply moving socio-economic paradox. You see, what we're looking at today isn't just a story about a landscape. It's actually a story about two completely different worlds occupying the exact same geographical space. On one side, you've got a region that is a literal powerhouse, fueling the entire state with massive energy infrastructure. But on the flip side, you have the indigenous populations and local villagers living in conditions that feel, well, centuries removed from modern development. So we're going to break down the realities of Purulia, examining both the incredible industrial might carved into its mountains and the really heartbreaking, grueling daily lives of the people who call those mountains home.
Okay, so what brilliantly illustrates this region is the sheer, almost overwhelming abundance of industrial water power, sitting right next to villages that are completely parched of basic utilities. Think about it. On one hand, you have the magnificent Bomni Falls, rushing with this incredible force. A natural wonder that feeds directly into a highly sophisticated billion-dollar hydroelectric system. I mean, water is literally the currency of this landscape. But just a stone's throw away from these massive reservoirs, local villagers are forced to carry their daily drinking water entirely by hand. They're lugging these heavy drums over long distances simply because their villages completely lack basic tube wells. It's just an incredible paradox, right? A land flooded with water for industry, yet completely dry when it comes to basic human necessity.
To really understand the human element here, we have to look at Kinney Hansda. She's an elderly woman from the area, and her heartbreaking words just perfectly capture the heavy weight of rural survival. She tells us, this life means having to suffer until the end. If there was no stomach, none of this would have to be done. Kinney is around 60 to 65 years old. She has tragically lost her sons, and she lives without the support of any surviving family. Literally every single day of her life is dictated by the relentless need to just feed herself. And you know, this quote isn't just a passing complaint. It is the raw, unfiltered reality of someone for whom survival itself is just an exhausting daily manual task.
Now, what's really interesting here is the physical toll required just to cook a single meal, which is represented perfectly by the number 2, as in 2 kilometers. Every single day, women like Kinney must head out into the forest, chop up heavy pieces of firewood, stack them up, and then carry them on their heads for 2 entire kilometers. Just take a second to process that. Think about the last time you walked 2 kilometers, and now imagine doing it while balancing heavy timber on your head at 65 years old. We aren't talking about a casual afternoon walk here. This is grueling, backbreaking labor performed by the elderly, not to build a business or anything, but merely to secure enough fuel to boil some rice and cook a single meal. This distance is literally the physical gap between survival and starvation in these hills.
So while the state is extracting massive resources from this terrain, the reality in villages like Fulojan Moor is a stark picture of life completely without the basics. There's no modern cooking gas here. Using firewood isn't some rustic aesthetic choice, it's literally the only option. Homes are surrounded by these huge piles of gathered wood, because without it, the kitchen just stops functioning. There are no tube wells providing clean, accessible drinking water. Everything requires immense physical exertion, leaving these communities completely disconnected from the massive technological advancements happening literally inside the mountain next door. They are just left gathering wood to scrape together 2 meals a day. And unfortunately, this intense struggle for survival bleeds directly into their agriculture too. Local farmers labor over crops like tomatoes and eggplants, but they hold absolutely zero pricing power in the nearby area of Senapona. They bring this pristine produce to the local market networks, only to be forced to sell it for roughly 5 to 20 rupees a kilo, which is essentially pennies. The middlemen just swoop in, buy up the produce at these rock-bottom prices, and then turn around and sell it in wider markets at exorbitant rates. It means the farmers are trapped in this relentless cycle of exploitation, where their intense, backbreaking labor barely yields enough to keep their own families fed, let alone actually escape poverty.
This is where the core theme really hits you. You've got a monumental power project built back in 1990, carved right into a mountain, juxtaposed against locals who don't even have basic cooking gas. It's wild. You have the sheer scale of a billion-dollar state intervention, initiated by the West Bengal Electricity Board over 3 decades ago, strictly to generate power, existing right alongside the enduring reality of the locals. They're living in hand-built mud houses, tending to indoor wood-fired stoves that just fill their homes with smoke. It's a stunning visual of 2 completely different timelines existing all at once. The mountain has literally been hollowed out for progress, but that progress seems to have completely bypassed the surface level where the actual people live.
Let's actually break down exactly how this colossal engineering marvel captures water from the beautiful Bomni Falls to spin electricity-generating turbines. It's essentially a massive pump storage system. Step 1, the natural flow from the multi-tiered Bomni waterfall gathers and is directed straight into the lower dam. Step 2, this water is then channeled through these massive, highly secured underground turbines. The sheer force of the rushing water spins the turbines, which generates electricity for the wider region. But step 3 is where the engineering really shines. The water doesn't just flow away, it's actively pumped back up to the upper dam so it can be used all over again. It's this incredible closed-loop system of immense power that has completely reshaped the hydrology of the whole mountain. But we have to remember, the natural resources here aren't just powerful, they are highly dangerous. The water pressure in the areas around the Bomni Falls can surge violently and totally without warning, especially during the rainy season. This sudden deluge is known locally as Harka Ban, and it is a wild, untamed force. It's a harsh reminder that while we try our best to harness nature for electricity, it remains incredibly unpredictable. Historically, Harka Ban has caused tragic loss of life, sweeping away unaware locals or tourists who just happen to be at the base of the falls when the water pressure suddenly skyrockets. So this resource is not just a handy tool for electricity, it demands immense respect and caution. Let's unpack the true scale of this facility for a second, because this isn't just a natural lake, it's a meticulously carved operational zone built back in 1990. The turbine area is so secure that you need special permission just to get inside. And it's buried so deep inside the mountain that a continuous stream of freezing cold air blasts out from the interior. And get this, they are still expanding. Right now, they're installing solar panels that literally float on top of the dam's water. Observers note it looks almost like magic, workers appearing to walk right on the water's surface as they piece together this floating solar grid. It is incredibly high-tech, highly secure, and highly efficient. Now shifting our lens back to the micro level, let's explore the incredible resilience and craftsmanship of the villagers themselves. Because while the state is out there building giant concrete dams, the locals are master architects of their own environment. These aren't just simple huts we're talking about. The exterior walls are beautifully decorated with hand-painted, intricate designs created by the families. Inside, sturdy wooden frameworks act as partitions, which are thickly and smoothly coated with mud plaster, and this is all done entirely by hand with immense skill and care. Since they lacked gas, they've ingeniously built both indoor and outdoor wood-fired stoves so they can cook during different seasons. And crucially, these homes feature dedicated built-in storage areas for grain, ensuring whatever meager harvest they have is protected. This next perspective is truly striking because it shows how everyday livestock, like goats, serve as the ultimate, and often the only, financial safety net for these hardworking families. When asked about their livelihood and savings, one villager simply pointed to the baby goats wandering around their mud house and said, "This is our bank account." It just perfectly encapsulates their economic reality. There are no savings accounts here, no stock portfolios, no formal financial security whatsoever. They invest their time and their very meager resources into raising these animals. When times get incredibly tough, or when they need to buy clothes, supplies, or medicine, they sell a goat. These animals are literally walking, breathing currency for a population completely cut off from the modern banking system. So as tourists easily travel here by train from Howrah to admire both the natural and the industrial beauty, the locals are still left asking when their lives are going to see any modern progress. The infrastructure clearly exists for visitors, right? You can take a train from Howrah, arrive in Purulia, easily hire a car, tour the breathtaking upper and lower dams, take photos of the Bomni Falls, and be back home the very next morning. Meanwhile, the state pulls millions of watts of power from these hills to light up distant cities. Yet, for the people who actually live there, the people carrying wood on their heads and drawing water by hand, they remain completely invisible to the modern world passing through. They're hosts to a modern marvel, but they're kept waiting outside its gates. The whole concept of development remains completely unfinished for them.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to end our explainer today. How can an area so rich in energy and resources leave its own people so powerless? We've seen the billion-dollar dams, the high-tech floating solar grids, and the brilliant engineering of the Ayodhya Hills. But we've also seen the 2-kilometer walks for firewood, the grueling manual labor, and the absolute lack of basic human necessities. The resources are clearly there. The technology is clearly there. The question we really have to walk away with is this. If we possess the engineering genius to conquer a mountain and electrify a state, when will we finally find the will to bring a simple tube well and a gas stove to the people living right on top of it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the world around you.